What is the greatest power in the universe? And why do most people completely miss it? If you ask a physicist, they'll talk about the strong nuclear force, the energy holding every atom in your body together. If you ask a CEO, they'll point to capital, the power to move markets and shape nations. Ask a politician, and they'll say influence, the ability to change minds and write the laws we live by. And in many ways, they're right. Society has always been fascinated with power. We train our bodies to become stronger. We pursue knowledge to become wiser. We work for years chasing financial success. But here's the question most people never stop to consider. What if none of those are the greatest power? What if the most powerful force in existence is not the power to build, but the power to restore what's already been lost? Because everyone talks about success, but very few talk about what happens when something inside you dies. Not physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Those mornings when you wake up, but everything feels heavy, when motivation disappears, when direction feels unclear, when nothing you've worked for seems to fix what's broken inside. That's where this becomes real, because when people hear the word resurrection, they often think of history or religious imagery, but very few recognize what it means in everyday life. Not in some distant future, but right here, in ordinary moments of struggle. Because the real question is no longer, what is power? But this, what kind of power can bring life back to what feels completely gone? The power of life emerging from death. And if that power is real, then no failure is final, no loss is permanent, no life is too far gone. And that might be the greatest power in the universe. Here's the real mystery we have to face. If resurrection is real, if this power that conquered the grave is still available today, then why do so many people still feel stuck? Why do people who say they believe in this power still walk through life defeated, exhausted, unchanged? Why is there such a gap between the miracle we talk about and the ordinary life we actually live? Because if we're honest, we've been told we are made new, but many of us still feel like the same old version of ourselves, just with a few new habits, a few new words, a different routine. But inside, not much has changed, and that tension is real, because it forces us to ask a deeper question. Is resurrection just something we believe in, or is it something we actually experience? Because if it's only a story, then we're just going through the motions. But if it's real, if this power truly brings life, where something has died, then staying stuck is no longer something we have to accept. It means defeat isn't final. It means change isn't impossible. And it means the gap we feel can actually be closed. So the question now is not, is resurrection powerful? The real question is, why aren't we living in it? We live in a world that worships the self, self-reliance, self-made, self-improvement. We celebrate the person who seems to have it all together, the one who looks alive, successful, and strong on the outside. But let's be honest, you can have 1 million followers and still feel completely alone. You can have a thriving career and a dying marriage. You can look like a masterpiece in public light and feel like a wreck in private darkness. Because deep inside, many of us are quietly carrying dead places. Maybe it's a dream that failed years ago, and you stopped hoping without even realizing it. Maybe it's a faith that used to burn like fire, but now feels cold and distant. Maybe it's a heart that shut itself down, because feeling nothing felt safer than being hurt again. And here is the tension we rarely say out loud. You can look completely alive on the outside, and still be carrying a cemetery inside your chest. The hardest part about these dead places is the shame that comes with them. We don't like to admit when something inside us isn't working anymore. So we hide it. We put on the "I'm fine" mask. We go through the motions. We keep ourselves busy, hoping no one notices the parts of us that feel broken. And slowly, we try to fix what feels dead by force. We work harder. We read more. We buy more things. We try to improve ourselves from the outside in. But here's the truth. You can't fix a dead place. You can't decorate a grave and call it a garden. Because some things aren't waiting to be improved. They're waiting to be made alive again. And the painful reality is this. Many of us have become experts at managing our own burials. We learn how to function while feeling empty. We learn how to smile while feeling nothing. We learn how to move forward while something inside us stays stuck in the past. And over time it becomes normal. We settle into the darkness. We lower our expectations. We stop believing real change is possible. So instead of transformation, we settle for maintenance. Instead of life, we accept survival. Because deep down we start to believe that this is just how the story ends. Think about the nature of growth. If you take a seed, an acorn, for example, and place it on a shelf, it stays exactly what it is. Safe, untouched, preserved, but it never becomes what it was meant to be. It remains an acorn, and nothing more. Now imagine what has to happen for that seed to actually fulfill its purpose. It has to be buried, and if you are that seed, the experience doesn't feel meaningful at all. You are pushed into the soil. It's cold, it's dark, it's tight. There is pressure on every side. No light, no direction, just silence. And from the outside, anyone looking at that moment would probably think, that's the end, it's over. But that's not the truth, because what looks like burial is actually the beginning of transformation. The pressure of the soil is what causes the seed to break open. The darkness is where the roots begin to grow, and what looks like the death of the seed's outer shell is actually what allows life inside it to come out. In other words, the very thing that looks like destruction is often the beginning of becoming what you were meant to be. 2,000 years ago, there was a moment when the world thought the story was over. Hope was buried, light was gone, and a heavy silence covered everything. It wasn't just a bad day, it felt like the final defeat. The followers of the man from Galilee didn't go to the tomb expecting a miracle. They went expecting an ending. They went to finish a burial. They were stuck in what we could call Saturday. Not Friday's pain, not Sunday's victory, but that in-between place, where the loss is real and the promise feels impossible. And honestly, many of us live in that same place. A personal Saturday. You're in the gap between what broke you and what hasn't been restored yet. You're in the silence after disappointment, in the waiting after failure, in the darkness where nothing seems to be changing. And in that place, it's easy to believe the story is over. It's easy to think that because it's dark, because it's heavy, because it's quiet, that you've already been defeated. But here is the truth that changes everything. Resurrection is not just something that happened in history. It is a power that is still working right now. Here is the core truth you need to hear today. Resurrection power is not just about what happens after you die. It is about what happens while you are still breathing. It is the power to rise again when everything inside you says to stay down. It reaches into the habit you can't seem to break and says, this is not your identity. It reaches into the shame of your past and says, this is not your destination. It reaches into the dead places of your life, the failures, the hidden struggles, the emotional coldness, and it speaks life again. And this is where we need to be clear. This is not self-help, because self-help is just a dead man trying to rearrange the inside of a coffin. It might look like progress, but it's still the same condition underneath. This is something completely different. This is transformation. Not trying harder, but becoming new from the inside out. It's not behavior adjustment. It's nature change. It's the difference between a caterpillar trying to move faster and a caterpillar becoming a butterfly. One is effort. The other is a new life entirely. Let's go deeper. Why does this actually matter in real life? In the original Greek, the word often used for life in the context of resurrection is zoe. Not bios, which refers to biological physical existence, but zoe, a different kind of life altogether. It means the life of the ages. A life that is not just existing, but alive in a deeper, indestructible way. And this is where it becomes practical. Because when you invite resurrection power into your life, you are not just improving yourself. You are inviting an indestructible force into your broken places. That changes how you see everything. It means you are no longer a slave to your history. Your past may be a chapter, but it is not the whole book. It does not get the final word. It also means your weakness is not disqualifying. It becomes the very place where transformation can happen. Because in the economy of resurrection, emptiness is not something to hide. It is something that can be filled. And death is not the end point. It is the starting point of renewal. So even the areas of your life that feel broken, dry, or completely finished, they are not useless. They are the exact places where life can be restored. And if you are feeling broken today, here is something you may not expect to hear. That actually puts you in the right position. Because resurrection doesn't happen where everything is strong and complete. It happens where something has already died. No death, no resurrection. So the very fact that something in you feels empty or lost does not disqualify you. It actually qualifies you for change. And that is the paradox of this kind of life. What feels like the end can become the beginning of something new. Let's draw the line clearly. We're really looking at two different ways of living. On one side, there's the world's way. On the other side, there's the resurrection way. And they don't just differ in belief. They differ in direction. The world's way says, fix yourself, work harder, push more, apply discipline, add pressure. And if something feels broken, hide it, cover it, manage it. Because in that mindset, weakness is dangerous. If people see your cracks, they might walk away. So you learn to wear masks. You learn to perform. You learn to look okay even when you're not. And slowly it all becomes self-reliance. It's all on you. Your strength, your effort, your control, and your identity becomes tied to what you can achieve. You are what you do. But the resurrection way speaks completely differently. It doesn't say fix yourself. It says be made new. Not through pressure, but through surrender to a power greater than your will. It doesn't say hide your weakness. It says bring it into the light. Because in this way of life, your scars are not disqualifications. They are places where light can enter. It doesn't say rely on yourself. It says depend on something greater. The same power that raised Christ is not distant. It is active and available. And it doesn't root your identity in success or failure. It roots it in grace. You are not what you do. You are who you are given to be. So the world says, try harder. But resurrection says, rise up. So here's where the line is drawn, clearly and personally, for every one of us. Either resurrection is just a comforting story we tell to ease pain at funerals, or it is a living reality we can step into right now. There's no real middle ground. Because if it's only a story, then the conclusion is simple. You just live like everyone else. You stay where you are. You accept the weight. You stay in your Saturday. You stay buried in disappointment, buried in fear, buried in patterns you can't seem to break. And honestly, that makes sense if nothing ever truly changes. But if resurrection is real, if that tomb was actually empty, then everything shifts. Because then you are not dealing with a symbol. You are dealing with a power. And if that power is real, then you have no business living like a prisoner. You were not created to stay buried in fear. You were not designed to remain in shame. You were not meant to live as if defeat is permanent. You were designed to rise, not just in theory, but in real life, right here, right now. Don't just listen to this, respond to it. Take a moment right now and be honest. Not just with yourself, but with God. What is the area of your life that feels like it has gone quiet, or even gone dead? Is it your marriage, your peace of mind, your sense of direction, your joy? Don't generalize it. Be specific. Name it. Because healing starts where honesty begins. Bring it out of the silence, out of the hidden place, out of the darkness, and into the light. And in that place, do something simple but powerful. Invite His life into it, not as a vague idea, but into that exact situation. Because here's the truth we often forget. You don't have to keep trying to fix what only God can resurrect. Striving has its limit. Control has its limit. Human effort has its limit. So take a breath, not a rushed one, a real one, and then stand internally, if not physically, and begin to shift how you see your life, not as something finished, but as something that can rise again. Start walking like resurrection is not just something you believe in your mind, but something you live in your steps, because you were never meant to stay buried in that place. It's time to rise.